UFO. The show is called We Are Women Warriors, brought to you by none other than Miss Betty Jean Grant.
Well, thank you, King Shot, and thank you, Buffalo. This is We Are Women Warriors, Betty Jean Grant, and we have a great show today. And I'm joined here, and I want to say live with my co-host, Miss Sherry Sherrill.
Hi there, everybody.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be talking about a lot of issues in Buffalo. And I think the biggest issue in Buffalo, for me and for a lot of people, in addition to us not seeing that total solar eclipse, that issue is gone. That's wait for the next 100 years and talk about that, which I won't be here. But I want to say that we are talking about the 33 Expressway. We're talking about the tunnel, which I call a toxic tunnel, and some people don't like it, but hey, that's what it is. So we're here today. We're going to be here every Thursday at 11:30 to 12 noon, talking about issues in the community, what impact community, and how we can work together to solve it. So we have here a dynamic person. She's my daughter, so I'm not bragging. I'm just telling the facts, and she's very well knowledgeable on a lot of things. She reads, she researches, and she tells us like it is. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Sherry Sherrill. And you want to get the mic?
Yes, and as soon as I get myself positioned here with this camera, that's the thing about a live radio show. You don't have time to prep between programs. You've just got to be ready to go.
Got to be ready to roll, right?
So here I am, everybody. Can you hear me okay there? Alrighty. Hey, everybody. This is Sherry Sherrill. I am also, in addition to being the project facilitator at the We Are Women Warriors organization, I'm also the president and founder CEO of Covington Associates Consulting, as well as being my mother's daughter.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, these 30 minutes are going to go real fast, so we're going to keep you abreast. And for brief discussion, just give a brief history of the 33 Expressway, the tunnel initiative, and where we are on this whole situation.
You know, the thing about the New York State Department of Transportation's Kensington Expressway Project, we all know it's Kensington Expressway is Route 33. The thing about that project is it has a tremendous groundswell of support, but from a strange place, from politicians. Almost the entire political establishment of Western New York, upstate Western New York, is pro this Kensington Expressway project. Now, for me, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a little bit superstitious. Anytime I see the political establishment galvanize around a public policy issue that impacts my community greatly, I get curious. I want to know why.
I do too. I get curious too, because as a person been in government and know that government is for the people, by the people, and of the people, you have to have the people consent in order to go forth with an initiative. You should have the people consent. And by the communities not being involved initially in the planning process, what to do for the 33 Expressway, whether to keep it there, fill it in, remove it, there was very little citizen participation. Fact is, an organization started, the East Side Parkways Coalition started because there was a lack of citizen and community participation. Because they said, wait a second, you got options on the table. You got option one to put a tunnel under the expressway that has caused so much damage, and you got other option, and you got option 10 to fill it in, but yet and still you're only bringing up one option. So how can the community be part of a process where the process has been predetermined and the results has been already in place?
And you asked for a brief history of the Kensington Expressway. You know, at the beginning is always a wonderful place to start,
right,
when you're trying to gain an understanding of an issue, and in all that get understanding, we know the Bible says so. Back during the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, all the way up, to be honest, through the 1970s, there was a great northern migration that happened where southern blacks, we moved up, and we are from down south,
Yes,
Mother.
we are.
We moved from down south because of racism, Jim Crow, and the black codes, and all sorts of violence and random acts of violence.
Because they got tired of picking cotton too.
Well, we had lots of motivation and reason. to move for a higher quality of life, and that higher quality of life was advertised as being existent up north. So we came here. Where we tended to move was where we could gain either mortgages or low rents.
Yes.
Now, the Humboldt Parkway neighborhood, we all know, if you know anything about the city of Buffalo, you know that the Humboldt Parkway neighborhood, I don't mean if you know something recently, if you know the city of Buffalo's history, Humboldt Parkway was a gem and is a gem. It's a premier community inside the city of Buffalo. Hamlin Park is not the only premier neighborhood in that area of the city. Humboldt Parkway itself is that gem neighborhood. Humboldt Parkway's grassy median, the area where the Kensington Expressway sits now and where the expressway did not exist at the time of the Great Migration up until 1955 is when the building started on that expressway. That grassy median area where the Kensington Expressway sits used to look like Bidwell Parkway, Chapin Parkway, Lincoln Parkway, and in fact was bigger than all of those parkways, grassy median. Now, Betty Jean, you go to any park, you go to North Buffalo, over there on the west side, go to Elmwood Village, and you look at Bidwell Parkway and Chapin Parkway.
Yes. You know
what do you think when you look at that?
I think about what could have been for Humboldt Parkway had people not, if people had treated Humboldt Parkway with the same respect that they treat Chapin Boulevard, Chapin Parkway, and Bidwell Parkway. They didn't put an expressway in that area. They didn't destroy trees. They gave the people who had those beautiful homes over there an opportunity to keep those homes, and keep those trees. That park. You know what? The park system that we have in Buffalo was put in place by Frederick Law Olmsted. After he finished putting in Central Park in New York City, he came to Buffalo in 1878 and he developed a park and parkway system. What he wanted, because Buffalo at that time was the 8th largest city in the United States with the number one per capita in millionaires, the richest city in this country, he wanted something that was a showcase. So he said, well, you know what? Buffalo is neatly designed. They have streets that radiates from City Hall. If you go downtown City Hall in all directions, you will have what you call radio streets, Genesee, Broadway, Clinton Street, William Street. All these streets radiates from City Hall, and you can take any of the streets from downtown City Hall, take them straight out of Buffalo to Cheektowaga, Lancaster, and wherever you need to go. And so we'll make a long story short. He said, okay, the street radiates, why not have a park that has the same kind of interconnection? So what he did was develop a parkway system with 7 parks, and I think 9 parkways, that one part of Buffalo from Cazenovia Park in South Buffalo, going down to South Park, going down to Humboldt Park, we used to call Parade Park, going to Delaware Park, Riverside Park, Front Park. So what he did was create a system and to connect these, he had parkways. So what connected South Park in Buffalo to Humboldt Park in Buffalo was the Fillmore Avenue, where we had tree line from Fillmore from South Park all the way down to Humboldt Park. So you had the same thing from Humboldt Park to Delaware Park. So you could be in South Buffalo and walk through a treed area all across the city of Buffalo. That is the genius of Frederick Law Olmsted. That is the treasure we had. But somebody decided they wanted to get rid of it.
So let me go back to saying just what you said about Frederick Law Olmsted. When he created the connected parkway system in Buffalo, it was a masterpiece of landscape architecture. It was the first interconnected parkway system in the entire country. So that's what makes is it the world? I know it was country. Was it world too? That's what makes Humboldt Parkway so particular. Did you hear what Betty Jean said? Humboldt Parkway, which used to, we call it MLK Park now, out of respect to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his life's work and the work of those persons that he worked with. Humboldt Parkway used to be connected by way of Fillmore Avenue all the way to Cazenovia Park in South Buffalo. It also was connected all the way to Delaware Park in North Buffalo. So when you think of we environmentalists who are out here as the community opposition, think of that.
Well, connect Delaware Park to Front Park.
All of the parks were interconnected. It was an interconnected parkway system. But what I'm trying to help you understand, listener, is that Humboldt Parkway is a very important park. It was an integral park in Buffalo's interconnected parkway system. Humboldt Parkway, which is now called MLK Park, used to connect by way of Fillmore Avenue and by way of straight up Humboldt Parkway, connected all the way to Cazenovia Park in South Buffalo and to Delaware Park in North Buffalo. So when black people began moving here during the Great Migration, we tended to move on the radio side streets. That's why
Yes.
Betty Jean mentioned those radial streets. We moved onto streets like Brunswick Boulevard, Hamlin Road. We moved onto Goulding. We moved onto Winslow. We moved onto Butler. And we moved onto, what's another side street over there? Sydney,
Yes.
Northland.
Dodge.
We moved Dodge, Northampton, Southampton. We moved onto those streets. Well, guess what started to happen when that began occurring? When the banks and when homeowners that were predominantly white who lived on Humboldt Parkway neighborhood, when they noticed the neighborhood becoming increasingly, and politicians, when they noticed the neighborhood becoming increasingly black, the federal government and New York State government decided to declare virtual war on those black people. What I mean by that is they decided to remove the value of living in the Humboldt Parkway neighborhood away from black people. And the way they did that was they used the excuse of the Department of Defense needing a way quickly in and out of cities in case, this I'm talking about during the Cold War era, in case there was an attack on America. That's the excuse they used. Their real primary motivation was also, however, to make sure that those white residents who were living in Humboldt Parkway neighborhoods knew to get out of that community and move to the suburbs, because they also, including the politicians and the banks, wanted to build up these formerly rural-looking areas that are the suburbs, including of the city of Buffalo.
Right, and out of that, when the men came back from the war in 1949, when they came back, that's when the movement came to start expressway all across this country. Because guess what? By the war being lasting those many years, men who could have been home raising families were at war. But when they came back, what they wanted to when they came back was an education and a house. So they had the GI Bill. They had also the home ownership program that would give them opportunities where they could buy those houses fastly being built in Cheektowaga, in Lancaster, in Williamsville, and elsewhere. And you know what? And a lot of people that don't look like me or my daughter, that don't look like us, they move out to the suburbs. Why? Because they had white skin privilege, and those opportunities was denied to African American soldiers. So what happened? They all built out there, and guess what? They said they went out there and said, you know what? We want a quicker way to get to Buffalo because we're living out here in the suburb, but we want our jobs in Buffalo. We're not too scared to come to Buffalo that we're going to, like people said, people afraid to come to Buffalo. We want our job. So they built the expressway not to help the city of Buffalo, not to expedite anything, but to make sure that those who live in Buffalo that was working outside of Buffalo had a quicker access. And who were the scapegoat? Who was the sacrificial lamb? Black folks who were buying those houses, like Sherry said, on those side streets. And eventually the houses on Humboldt Parkway became open for them to buy. But can you imagine buying a house in a beautiful tree-lined area? Think the tree's going to be there forever?
Not knowing that the expressway was going to be built, and that's the other thing. When the government made the decision to put the highways, and they did it all across America, wherever there was a predominant black resident population moving in, they put highways through black and brown communities. So Latinos experience in New York City experience the same thing, and in other parts of the country experience that part of the same experience that the black community did. Now, we're giving you this background of understanding the Kensington Expressway because to understand a situation, you must try to see more than just the side of it that's most apparent. Now, when you're looking at the fact of the government virtually declaring a war on black America and saying, not only are we going to destroy the value of neighborhoods like Humboldt Parkway, not only are we going to deprive you of the great natural outdoors environment of having grass and trees everywhere you looked in the middle of the heart of the inner city, which is where you folks are living, what we're also going to do is not tell you that we're going to be putting a highway there. So you had persons who were upwardly mobile blacks finally getting a chance to purchase housing and home, beautiful, beautiful homes. I don't know if anybody else has looked at, but I've been lip dropping Humboldt Parkway neighborhood for about 6 months now. And every now and then I'll meet a resident or a homeowner who wants me to come in and just talk to them. Those are some of the most beautiful homes in the city of Buffalo, in that corridor right there in the Humboldt Parkway neighborhood. Well, the government didn't tell those people that purchased, the black people that purchased those homes back during the early 1950s, that highway was going to be put there. Can you imagine finally buying the house of you and your family's dreams, only to find out the government is getting ready to plow a moat? And in Rochester, they describe their interloop highway, which is being removed completely, unlike here in Buffalo, where we're being told and we're dictated to know by the New York State Department of Transportation, know that we were not going to get a removal of the Kensington Expressway, which they could have done with $1 billion at their disposal from the United States federal government Department of Transportation, which they still can do if they want to do the correct thing. You see, because there's something else you need to know about the Kensington Expressway and other high-speed freeways like it. They make people sick. Yes, and they have made people sick in the Humboldt Parkway neighborhood. There are people living in what is a veritable cancer alley circumstance in the Humboldt Parkway corridor, and I call it really the Kensington Expressway corridor. They're living in parts of their streets over there where almost every other home has someone who's sick or has died or is living with, recovering from some form of either heart disease, cancer, emphysema, leukemia, sarcoidosis, bronchitis, asthma, high lead, premature birth weight, premature and early births, autism, developmental delays, strokes, you name it, it exists there. There's a plethora of it. In fact, there's what I call, and other persons all across this country that are studying the negative adverse health impacts of highways. See, that's why that environmental impact statement that you want to call us tree huggers? No, we're environmentalists, that we were clamoring for in opposing the Kensington Expressway project, because the New York State Department of Transportation does not want to do an environmental impact variety of study. That variety of study would have disclosed to the public at large, and in a big way, there is a health issue connected to the Kensington Expressway that a lot of people don't know about.
And I want to say one thing. With Joe Biden, and thank him for his Reconnecting Community initiative. This is what started. I know Stephen Barbagita, may she rest in peace, initiated this with Clark Eaton so many years ago, 2009 to be exact. And I was a member of ROC as well as Antoine Thompson when this first started. So we have some history of how ROC became, how it started. But what we are concerned about is that when this opportunity came to have money diverted to Buffalo to improve the lives of African Americans that had been so damaged by the building of expressway all across, not just Buffalo, but all across inner city, urban areas in the whole United States. So what happened was the money could have been used several ways. It could have been used to fill in what they had destroyed. It could have been used for a tunnel, which they decided to do. It could have been used for other options. But other cities, 35 of them, who have the same problem of Buffalo, expressway being built in urban black community, they chose to remove their expressway. 35 expressway all across this country have been removed.
And we've been advocating on, when I say we, I mean the community opposition to the Kensington Expressway project as it now stands, with the Department of Transportation of New York State as the lead agency in charge of that project. You need to know something else. Up north of the Kensington Expressway is the New York 198 Scajaquada Expressway. The Scajaquada Expressway and the Scajaquada corridor had a similar problem that we have with the Kensington Expressway. The residents that live near the Scajaquada corridor, in that corridor and near that expressway, wanted it removed. New York State Department of Transportation said the same thing today that was said to the Kensington Expressway corridor residents, and that is no way. It is not going to be removed. We're concerned about the level of service that suburban or whoever you want to criticize and say is only people using the highway. We're concerned about the level of vehicular service, and we want to maintain that. So no, you're not going to have it removed. There was a 10-year fight to try to, by the residents to insist that the Scajaquada be removed. Guess what happened? Former New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo, former New York State Assemblyman Sean Ryan, who is now a New York State Senator, I think in the 61st District. Well, those two men intervened and caused the Greater Buffalo Niagara Regional Transportation Council, which is the premier metropolitan planning organization in upstate Western New York, not the NFTA, the premier metropolitan planning and transportation organization is an organization called Greater Buffalo Niagara Regional Transportation Council. Well, those three intervened and worked with the Scajaquada corridor and Scajaquada 198 proximate residents, and the Scajaquada corridor is history. It is going to be removed. Yes. It is going to be completely removed. Up there near Delaware Park, you're going to see a beautiful thoroughfare, a beautiful boulevard. But not in the Kensington corridor.
So hear me out. The Scajaquada 198 Expressway is going to be removed. The Rochester Inner Loop, because of people outcry, has been or is going to be removed. The I-81 in Syracuse, because of the public outcry of not wanting an expressway, that is going to be removed. The Robert Moses Parkway, Niagara Falls, because of the people outcry and didn't want the expressway or parkway, that is going to be removed. Why in the city of Buffalo and our black community, where people on Humboldt Parkway have said 8-1, they don't want the expressway, they don't want the tunnel. Why is New York State not listening to them when they listen to the resident of Scajaquada 198, listen to the resident of the Rochester Inner Loop, they listen to the resident of the I-81?
Well, the Scajaquada neighborhood is predominantly white. I'll just say it.
Well, there are some black folks there.
There are some, but it's predominantly a white neighborhood.
The key issue is that they listen to the people. In all these incidents, whether it's a black neighborhood or a mixed neighborhood or a completely white neighborhood, they listen to the people, except with the exception of one section of the city of Buffalo.
And it is the black section of the city of Buffalo.
In one section of New York State, and that is the Humboldt Parkway. The residents have spoken. They did a survey, they did a poll, they did a petition. They don't want that tunnel there. They want the expressway removed, but New York State is not listening to them. I ask you why.
When you find the predominant, most of the political establishment of upstate Western New York is supporting that Kensington Expressway remaining where it is, let me ask you this question. Do you think if Humboldt Parkway had remained white and the Kensington Expressway had been placed there, and then some 69 years later, the federal government said, we're going to give $1 billion to the state of New York, or $56 million to the state of New York, because the governor keeps insisting that the $1 billion is coming from the state of New York, but I thought all the money came from the federal government.
It does.
Anyway, do you think that a predominantly white neighborhood asked what kind of project do you want to happen to that Kensington Expressway that was wrongly placed in the middle of your neighborhood back during the 1955 through 1971 era? What do you want done to that highway? I submit to you that a predominantly white neighborhood would have said what the predominantly black neighborhood has said, and that is remove the Kensington Expressway. Why the political establishment does not want that highway removed, but instead wants $1 billion project done that's going to get a lot of white contractors paid, I'll just say it, and going to get a lot of opportunities for people to make sizable donations maybe to political campaigns. You just got to ask yourself, what is it Stockholm syndrome, where you're held captive and then you start romanticizing the person or the thing that's holding you captive? What is it that's romantic about the Kensington Expressway? Why would anybody want that beautiful Humboldt Parkway neighborhood not to be completely restored back to the way it used to look, so that our families that live in East Side Buffalo community can come there and just walk along that beautiful grassy median, exercise, enjoy without breathing in pollution that's going to be killing people and making people sick? Why would anybody want that expressway remaining there?
Because
what possible motivation could they have?
If you had a choice of getting a fill-in to restore like it used to be, when the home was first bought, to restore from Michigan Street and Cherry, the Parkway with trees and fill in all the way to Parkside. Would you want that? Would it be better for your house? Just say you remove the expressway and you don't put the tunnel in and you fill in with trees. What's the value of your house with the trees and the fill in as opposed to a tunnel beneath an expressway that is already has killed people, it's already made them sick, and will continue to make them sick?
The highway, the project that the New York State Department of Transportation is insisting on doing, putting a tunnel and then planting a fake park atop the tunnel. Well, at every end of that tunnel, there's going to be a higher concentration of pollution, particulate matter pollution in particular, and greenhouse gases than there is right now. There's not going to be any fancy air filtration or ventilation system whatsoever. They're going to merely maybe have overhead fans in there that are going to be pushing that more concentrated bad air and that pollution out either end of that tunnel. So folks who live downwind, upwind, the wind doesn't just blow in one direction, I'll remind you, where whoever lives at the top of that tunnel and whoever lives at the end of that tunnel, they're going to be getting a higher concentration of pollution than they are right now. And you know what?
Simply because that tunnel does not cover the whole parkway.
And that's the only project that would have made sense to me. Would have been completely covering it.
There's a science museum, there's 3 churches, they're going to get the extent in a school, the science magnet school, going to get the extent of that extra carbon monoxide and radon gas, whatever else gas that can be taken for that. The southern end that ends at Sydney Street, just think about a house past Sydney Street. You got houses on Humboldt Parkway.
That's actually the northern end. Sydney's at northern.
Oh, the northern end. Okay, I just got my direction mixed up. The northern end. It's not going to go, it's going to cover only 1/4 of the Humboldt Parkway. 3/4 will be still exposed to the toxic, 3/4 will be still exposed to the radon gas and everything else that they can find.
And we need to begin to wrap up, and I just want to close by saying this. The U.S. state of California, since 1993, has been notifying, advising its builders and developers that 1,000 feet is the minimum buffer distance that any sensitive use like a school, a skilled nursing facility, a hospital, a clinic, or a home or church needs to be placed in proximate distance to a freeway. Here in Buffalo, New York State Department of Transportation is wrongly and falsely and fraudulently telling people there's going to be a 500-foot buffer zone. 1,000 feet since 1993 has been the minimum buffer zone in the U.S. state of California, and we are just as smart here in the state of New York as people in the state of California. So Betty Jean, I will continue, and I will say this in closing and pass it to you. I will continue to be in opposition to the Kensington Expressway project unless there's going to be a complete removal of the Kensington Expressway or nothing.
Right, and I will continue to be in opposition as long as people are in opposition, and right now they are in opposition 8-1. They don't want the expressway to remain there, and they don't want a tunnel to be placed there. So next week we're going to be on 11:30 to 12. Join us.
And we're going to be having a march and a rally.
The call-in number is 837-1112, and Saturday, April 20th at 10:30, meet us at Mandela Market, because we're going to be marching from Mandela Market, Jefferson and East Ferry, to Humboldt Parkway and East Ferry. If you live on Humboldt Parkway, please come out and join us. If you live elsewhere and want to support the people in Buffalo, particularly black people in Buffalo, please come out. On a note, see you next Thursday at 11:30.
We are Women Warriors.
We are Women Warriors, and we're going to talk about a lot of issues in Buffalo. Bye.
Finish? Finish?
No. You can leave that out. And I'm sorry we weren't able to take any calls today because we're only for 30 minutes, and that 30 minutes go really, really fast. So join us next Thursday
We'll take calls next week.
at 11:30 for the We Are Women Warriors show, and I don't know what we're going to call this title. And so we'll see you then. We will see you. I just dropped my thing here. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, join us and talk about this Humboldt Parkway Expressway. what you feel about it. I'm glad people are watching. I'm glad people are. Hi, Ingrid from California. Glad to see that you're on. So join us. Sherry hit the
Hi.
Ingrid. She's on.
How you doing, Miss Hargrave? Nice to see you. Congratulations on the baby.
Oh yeah, thank you. Your new grandma, huh? Beautiful baby. So we'll see you next Thursday at 11:30 on We Are Women Warriors. Let's talk about it, but it's not the name of the show. That's my whole show. We'll have a name by next week. See you later. Bye.